All right, good day, everyone. My name is Matt Fifer. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. One of the things that I really enjoy about what I do is having a chance to get to know some of the folks that I've known of in the industry for a long time, but really haven't had an opportunity to really get to know them. And today is a great opportunity to do just that with Buster Arnwine, the founder and CEO of Fusion Retail Group. And before we jump into, what Fusion is and what it is that they do, Buster, I wanted to spend a little bit of time giving our audience and me at the same time an opportunity to really get to know you better. So, talk a little bit about yourself. Talk about where you grew up. Talk about your college study, and talk about how you ultimately got into the retail industry.
Yeah, happy to be here. I grew up in East Tennessee on a farm, and which is very far away from working in CPG professionally. And I grew up on that, and then so my dad was a farmer, and then he went into car sales. I know that seems like a left turn, but learned a lot from sales, from the car piece at a young age from him. And then I learned a lot about how hard it is to run a business before that when he was running a farm. And, uh, always, I didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly, most of my life. Like I think a lot of people probably. I just knew the things I liked when I was younger. I was good with numbers. I loved thinking of the future, and I loved strategy and flow and all these other things. I didn't particularly care for detail. You can confirm that with many of my teachers I had back then, probably. And ended up going to college for supply chain, and that's what I chose. I really enjoyed the flow of it, and with designing really cool systems to be faster, more efficient, better, and that really enticed me a lot, right? And then the local university there was number one in the nation supply chain at the time, and so it seemed like a natural fit. And I went to the supply. I think officially it was marketing, logistics, and transportation. I think was my degree, so it was a little bit of blend of everything. And I stumbled upon CPG actually on internships. I think my junior year, I was just looking at where do I want to go. I wanted to get some real experience. I had to work full time in high school, and I definitely worked full time job out in college too to help pay for everything, right? So I'd been working quite a bit, but I was like, I need to get some real experience, right? Like serving and doing basic sales is not going to help my future. Just let's do that. So interviewed with a very large CPG company, Unilever, and ended up doing like a 6-month offsite co-op with them, and helping out with in Connecticut, but it was helping out with the Walmart team and on supply chain at the time. And that's just when I fell in love with CPG. Is so I love the thing about it is everybody needs it, and it may shift a lot, but it's all people are always going to need products, right? In these areas, durable goods and to eat, bev food, health products, other material things, outdoor, like everything is that stuff's always going to be needed in some form or fashion. It may evolve, and I love the stability of a huge industry that you can apply to different companies. I mean, as you're shifting, and also I love the complexity. I think CPG sometimes it doesn't get the credit it has. I talk to other people outside the industry, and look, everything's hard, right, in business, but the skill needed to make a widget and then get it all the way into a home, and then get them to keep on buying those widgets and to do it profitably and without with getting everybody's support along the way, all the third parties and retailers you need. Look, it's hard. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of experience to get it done. It doesn't matter how smart you are. A lot of it's just experience or, taking certain bets. And so I love that about the industry. Like it's stable, but it is challenging, fun. And, there's a lot of different paths that could take you down in your career. And that's when I fell in love with that. And so I started off in supply chain, and then after college, I started at Unilever, but then shortly after, I think I was looking for maybe a different culture of, I was young, a lot of energy, and wanted fast paced, and I wanted a little bit more responsibility. So maybe a smaller company. And at the time it was smaller, but I went to Reckitt, Big Keezer, and I got more than I bargained for on it, but that's really what started my whole career off.
You had a long run. It was what, almost just over 16 years, I guess, at Reckitt. Give us some of the highs and lows of your run with Reckitt. What did you learn, and most importantly, what did you take away?
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic run. I think it's something that, I draw from that experience every day, and I think about a lot of things every day throughout it. So in that 16 plus year tenure at Reckitt, I did a lot of different roles. So I had three roles in supply chain across multiple sites the first 5 or 6 years, and then Reckitt was very entrepreneurial for being a mid-sized CPG, and they took risk on people development. They were very much just about like having athletes and generalists, and so which you don't see as much of these days, right? In larger companies, and I think that's a miss of what people need, is really taking risk on people cross training. So then I went into trade marketing, and then sales. From supply chain. It's not always a natural move, right? And but I started building up a pretty general business acumen across a lot of, I think I did 12 roles in 16 years, something like that. And across a lot of things, a lot of special projects, a lot of, led very large brands, led very large channels and retailers, did a lot of supply chain work, a lot of financial work. Reckitt outperformed during that time period. Reckitt was outperforming all the peers, even the big blue chips, 4x on returns coming in. And that was because they were fast, entrepreneurial, and very numbers focused. And that was before being numbers focused was in trend like it is a little bit more nowadays at the bigger companies, I think to a fault, to be honest with you. And it taught me, it's like, man, you know what? P&L and balance sheet, they run the world. Like, if you got to have money to keep on operating. They also taught me no dog and pony shows, as I call it, no BS, basically, which is, and I'll take that to the day, which is like, do what matters and makes outcomes, not what makes you feel good or looks good, right? And I think that, again, that's what the corporate's missing on a lot of nowadays. And a lot of places, very performative. None of it was performative. All about numbers, all about going, no emotion, in fact, and good debating. I love it. That's where I figure I love debating. I'm a natural dreamer. I typically think about the future, and typically I do, like, I have a lot of big dreams and all the things I want to do, and like imagination. Like, I've always had that since a kid. But frankly, starting my career, I did not understand, and I didn't put enough value into execution. And like I mentioned earlier, on details and knowing the details on executing and all that. And I think in tough fashion at points, right? It was a culture that was renowned for, speed and aggression, in some points. But I learned that you need a vision, but you need the execution, the connection to details. And I also learned, and I saw this from other people, is if you're all vision, and most people really do lean one into that spectrum, right? Because their comfort zone is what they like. And my comfort zone is vision, like I said. But what I figured out was you can't, the vision will never be realized unless you're really good at execution, knowing the details and just making it happen, no matter what, and focusing on outcomes. But also, if I'm over here with no vision, then I'm just doing stuff and not achieving anything, right? And so what I learned was the magic is in the combination of those, right? So I learned how to do best in class execution and details on that. I leveraged my strengths, and I figured out, like, this is how you run a business, right? Is you kind of need both of those things on top of the experience to go, right? And I think that's my intent as I gone along, became more and more about training myself and putting myself in very tough positions to expand myself, build my toolkit, so I can actually stand on my own 2 feet at one point, to be able to do some other things I wanted to do outside of corporate.
Yeah. You and I are a lot alike in terms of trying to balance what is a sort of a default setting toward vision with an understanding that you have to really embrace the execution side of things, or else you never accomplish anything. Your entrepreneurial bug, you grew up in an entrepreneurial family, watching your dad take risks and get out there and hustle. And I knew from the point that I was thinking entrepreneurial thoughts from the point that I was 10 years old. My sense is it's probably the same for you. Were you out, hustling as a kid, or were you daydreaming about things as a kid? And what I'm really curious about is, at what point in your professional career did you start thinking, man, there's all kinds of problems here, or there's opportunities here. It sure would be fun to do something on my own.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I have four siblings. So it's a family of five kids, and basically all of us are entrepreneurs at this point that started businesses, different things in different industries. And, I think a lot of that came from, the upbringing of, it was no bounds kind of thinking. Like, look, independence was pushed on us at an early age.
Yeah.
So standing on your own 2 feet was valued more than anything else. And, being able to deal with ambiguity, going along and honestly just rolling with the punches was kind of the family culture. And a lot of that is very, very important when you're doing this, right? It's so from an early start, like at corporate, I actually thought I was always going to be on my own. Now, what that looked like in my head was radically different than what actually it is there, right? So like the idea I think held of like, I want to do something on my own, but really I was more thinking like, I want to be my own consultant or do whatever early on. And then as I became more informed over my career of like what different things look like outside of corporate, and started really literally learning myself over time much better. Like I knew myself much better in my 30s than in my 20s through a lot of executive coaching and just honestly life experience. I started to realize this, like, between what I know about myself, but also problems I had seen running businesses. Like I started seeing a lot of problems and no real good solutions, right? And look, the market has evolved over the 20 years. Like the market is radically different than it was 20 years ago, right? It's just changing faster. And I just noticed, I was like, everybody's a step behind. That's what in corporate, everyone's a step behind. And then, I could never propose 5 steps out because I'd get my hand slapped in corporate, right? Because either because somebody else wanted to be the person to do it, or it's like you needed to do anything and everything you could to make the month or the quarter, right? In the short side of you, depends if you're a public company or not, right? So I started noticing a lot of problems, and I started understanding kind of where my strengths really lied and what position I could be in to really make an impact on the market.
And at what point did you start tinkering with things on the side, even things that were didn't go so far as starting a company, but at what point did you start to sort of mess with ideas?
Yeah, when you get into a good career path and you're moving up fast, right? Like you can fall into some fallacies that people try to make you believe within the company and within just in general, right? And so there were times I slipped out and I kind of probably lost track of my vision a little bit because I saw a very aggressive corporate path, and look, there's nice things to it. There's nice compensation things. There's nice quote unquote safety things for it, and it's what right? And I think so. I slipped in and out of that for a while, and then I think in my head, like turning 40 was the point. I was like, that's the point I kind of wanted to make a shift, and that's the reason I did it. I wasn't prepared when I did it. Honestly, I was just fed up, and like it's just like things it grown, and like I think I was just at a point where I was just like, I don't know what I need to do. I need to kind of just get out here and get my hands a little messy, and frankly, I need a break because I needed a break. It'd been a long, hard career. I'd been moving every 12 to 18 months. Frankly, I was failing all the time because like I was always doing new roles, and I was always out of my depth. And then by the time I got in my depth and I was really good, I'd be moving to the next thing and getting challenged, right? And so, and I'm a kind of 100% in that guy too.
Yeah.
And so it's like I couldn't do my jobs there, particularly larger jobs that I was getting. So it's just like, let's just jump. It was a good opportunity. Personally, it was a good time. A lot of other things happened. I was like, let's just get out and see what happens, right? And it's been, that was about close to 3 years ago, and it's been a really wild journey since then, right? But I think, I knew myself too. It's like I need like to see things, experience things, see the flows, then kind of just like piece it together. And that was the best thing, right? Because other than that, I'd just be listening to other people, which I figured out, isn't always the best move to just do what other people are saying to do.
Yeah. Again, you and I are so similar. I had an amazing run at Walmart, great company, worked for amazing leaders. But the whole time I was there, even though I was advancing, rapidly and had all these incredible opportunities in front of me, I felt like I was living someone else's life. And so that time that I was there was very good and very rewarding in one way. But the longer I was there, the more and more I was like, man, I'm never going to realize this thing that I really had set out to do from the very beginning. And it was a difficult break, but it's been great. So talk about Fusion. You've got a great big vision. You pulled together an amazing team of folks that you've gotten to know over the years. Talk about Fusion, what it is that you all do today, and what makes your business different.
Yeah, I think look, Fusion is kind of a response to a lot of the problems I saw, and of just running businesses and the large ones. And I had experience running one of the smaller businesses they picked up too. So I saw, different problems in different sizes of business and CPG, particularly around, ability for really good ideas to scale. And I think that's where I saw it, right? Is, the trends that they do continue, but they were going then too, a few years ago, was larger companies buying up quote unquote, magical little companies, incorporating them, getting efficiencies, killing the magic, right? And then keep on moving on the next one where, the grass is greener on that side. And on smaller companies, what I've seen, particularly over the last couple of years, right? I've been engaging a lot of them, I talk to a lot, is they're really good people, very, very smart for the most part, great ideas. But the ability to grow now is like, it's much more than effort. It's much more than intelligence. It's much more than having the energy. And it's even more than the connections. It's 20 years ago, look, the goal was get on some valuable shelves, right? Yeah. And then optimize. And 10 years ago, roughly, hey man, you can go grow pretty good. A D2C brand, you can get some good ROASs, and you can go rock out on Amazon, and you can actually grow a really healthy digital business in conjunction with retail. So that was a big focus. But nowadays, the thing is, there's no one simple thing. It's like shoppers are blended between online and offline. The complexity to actually grow and get all the pieces it requires to grow right now are incredibly hard to get, right? And so what I saw with the smaller companies was that they don't have the resources, even with funding. It takes a lot of resources to get everything under the old model, or they didn't even know what to do, who to talk to, or they were focusing on just one very small aspect of growth, and then you're not getting near the bang for your buck for it. And so really with Fusion, it was like, hey, I want to help these people out, right? Like I want to help people grow with good ideas that are going to be good for consumers and good for markets and everything else like that, and try to decomplexify it a little bit, but give them access to resources. So improving consulting, improving agency work, and improving brokerage. And I think, for example, brokerages, right? And I'll just say it directly. Like, I think, look, they're good at process. They're good at getting in. And I think relationships are meaning less and less at most big retailers because of the rotational schedule. It's more about like knowing how to develop relationships, knowing how to get in.
Yeah.
So, but they charge an arm and a leg, and you always ask the value. When I was running businesses, and then when I talk to everybody else, this always hits a nerve. It's like, well, what kind of value is the broker driving, right? Okay. Once you get past that meeting, they're not really building you an advanced deck. You still have to do that. They're maybe doing some of the particulars down the line, but are they really advising if it's one customer, how it fits into total market, or if it's larger than that, like how do you balance everything? Are they really telling you how to grow over time? And they're not. And because they don't know how, because they've never ran a brand, they've never done that. And so same thing with agencies, are typically trying to do the least amount they can to keep their monthlies up, right? So the minimum amount of work to keep you from calling me, to yell at me to do more work, right? And then consultants normally come in and are fairly disconnected from actual reality on what it takes to actually get stuff done. So it looks pretty, and theoretically and on paper, yes, you're right, but try getting that done in the trenches, right? And so So the idea being, really what's needed more are models that provide a lot more value for the cost to a brand to grow, and also simplify the process of growth. It could take 5 to 10, depends on what you're trying to do, 5 to 10 third-party agencies at least. And if you really broker out a lot, even more. But between marketing, strategy, and fulfillment,
Analytics.
and
Yeah.
sales and analytics, you're starting to get into dozens of companies that you actually need to work with. And by the way, they all have margins. They live off their margin. And so, and I don't like one thing is I don't want us to live off margin at Fusion. We don't. And because that makes you lazy, frankly, I think. And so I think it should be about like growing the business should be the focus for both sides, making it simple for the other person. They're a founder for a reason, because they're special. They have a good idea. They have a lot of passion. Most founders, 80% of what they do, if you go talk to them, they'll say 80% of what they do is not what they're good at, not what they're passionate about. It's not their zone, right? And because they're having to sift through stuff, what takes them 10 hours could take a professional like on my team 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
To do it literally is that big of a thing, because it's just light switch, like we're being able to do it all. So giving access of people to that and improving things. So on brokerage side, let's just use Walmart because that's what everybody uses, right? But even though we're master, we're really good at other channels. Let's say you're going in there, and then most brokers will agree to any kind of pricing strategy that you're giving. I won't. My team won't, because I want to be here for a long time. I don't want you to go disrupt your market, have another customer get mad at you, or Walmart get mad at you for pricing, or you give pricing that, and this is what all people do wrong too. They look at profitability wrong, and they miss a lot of things. And man, you're coming a lot leaner than you thought. That doesn't help me in the long run. Doesn't help them. So coming with that viewpoint on top of being able to improve the story you deliver to the retailer, and of course being good at penetrating, getting the meeting, and working stuff afterwards. That's just table stakes for anything here, right? So improving that is good. Realistic consulting when we go in and do that with customers and helping out as well. So that's kind of the model, is just improving all those things with a focus on brokerage is where we're moving to, with the Fusion side, because there's a few other big moving parts, because I think that's the biggest area that actually needs it the most right now, because brokerage is now much more than relationships that it used to be. Now it's about being smart, storytelling, data management, and growing over time. So, really focusing on, yes, we sell you in, but we're also going to focus on selling out in terms of turns afterwards. Yeah. And that's when, let's say it's 5%, that's when 5% starts to make sense on your P&L. It doesn't make sense outside of that if the broker's not doing it.
Yeah. That's why I like so much about the Fusion story, because you're right. The traditional brokerage model is based on, it's an incentive system that's based on top line sales growth. I mean, that's how you're compensated. But I like the emphasis, the hyper emphasis that you put on the bottom line, and making good decisions about ways to optimize your business with longevity in mind, not just about that early pop. I think in my opinion, especially in Northwest Arkansas, there's been so many opportunities that, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but there's always another opportunity, right? So there wasn't as much of a bias on having long-term relationship with clients, because there's a whole line of companies that also need help where you can add value, at least for a short period of time, and getting that top line sales growth pop. But organizations that are really about long-term optimization and positioning, I think there's a real opportunity for you there.
Yeah, look. The results will speak for themselves. The interactions will speak for themselves. I'm comfortable with that. We, not saying we'll always be like. I always want to be boutique size intentionally, because of that. Because look, at the end of the day, a lot of other company agencies, brokerages, like what happens is you talk to the leader, right? Who's probably charismatic and great and smart, right? And then you get handed off to a person that's also great, but they're probably going to be great in 5 to 10 years, right? They're young in their career. They got 10 to 15 other people just like you that they're having to manage, and there's no thought in it. It's just a process. It's an assembly line of doing it, right? And there's some merit to a lot of. Don't get me wrong, I like efficiency, but the nuances in businesses and the thinking through the sell-through over time and the growth requires a little bit more, right? So I don't ever want to get over my skis in that. And I want to be able to go through and have deeper thought process. And in some simpler clients, look, if it's just more simple, then yeah, okay, it's easier. But we have a lot of strategic partnerships, right? And so I don't ever want to have, intellectual dilution on any of this from the executive team that I've assembled, which is they have experience like that's amazing, but it's like they have time to be able to apply that. And I think that's what we're thinking of. And we're staffing up and we're going to continue hiring and as we're going. But look, that's always the top of my mind is fulfilling the brand promise of Fusion of being different and providing value for what we charge.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your sweet spot, or, what's the typical CPG company that we would want to work with? What size, what stage, what category?
Yeah. Look, here's how I usually answer that. I like the ones that are either pre-revenue to maybe right before 8 figures, because you can set things up right. Like the reason I like, if they're funded, right? If they're not funded, I think it's going to be difficult to do anything, and that probably wastes everybody's time, right? But if they're well funded, and I can help them get funds, actually, I've helped a lot of people out. I've got a lot of pro forma investor experience over the past year, doing stuff, helping out with that. I like it because we can build things right. Ideally, like my dream scenarios are always pre-revenue, then take them to 100 million, right? And then we'll see what happens after that. But typically you can start staffing up and doing other things, and we'll just maybe change the arrangement. That's what I want to see. Those are the type of stories I want to remember after I retire, right? And it's like, those are the brands I want to point to those. We have a lot of really cool things. I think we'll head that way, right? It can't do it overnight to 100 million, but I think that's my sweet spot. That's what we're good at. And if you think about it, when you're in large corporations, particularly like most of the time you're fixing problems from the last person or team. And like, it's always rolling, right? And it's like, you're fixing pricing problems or there's silos and people are doing things, and then they got to hire people to fix the silo effects, which are crazy because then you have too many people in each silo. Like, personally, I think most large companies you could probably fire 50% of the people and get more done. That's an insight into my head on how you can get it done. I think, fixing problems before they start is really exciting for me, right? I think we can go fix afterwards. There's plenty of problems. Even very small companies have problems they probably lay down. But instead, hey, before we scale, let's think about our profitability. Let's think about how we're making money. Let's think about the total trade landscape and how I want to do pricing and how I want to do the different pack sizes and within it, and not give myself a problem where I have Amazon coming trying to get profitability payback in a little bit, or Walmart breathing down my neck, or Costco kicking me out, right? And I think, like, how do you prevent those things? Because a lot of people, they lay the landmine field themselves by taking opportunistic short thing. They haven't seen it, so they think it's a great move. They're not really thinking about tomorrow. And it's like, well, I'm not saying sacrifice the opportunity today, but there's usually a few tweaks you can do to really kind of like make sure that you don't lay a landmine field, then have to walk right back over it, right? And so, which is typically what people do, right? And it's just not by knowing. And I think that's where we love coming in. It's like helping them, saying, hey, this is how we can actually prevent that in the future. So if you want to drive valuation in your business, most people want to sell it at some point, right? Or some people just want to crack out some profit, but most people want to be able to sell a brand. It's like, let's avoid some of these blemishes that would show up on it then, and let's focus on the things that's going to get your valuation higher.
Yeah. You mentioned the future. Give us a sense for what the future looks like. The game has obviously changed a lot in the last 10 years and the last 5 years. And I think that change is only going to accelerate even how CPG companies interact with retailers, and how companies like you can sort of stand in between them and add value. But we'll talk about the world as you see it, and what suppliers need to be anticipating going forward.
Yeah. And I think I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, just briefly, which is the changing. I think the change curve is steepening, and we've all seen it, we've all experienced it. And so over the last 5 years, think about the returns you could get, the digital marketing returns you could get 5 years ago versus today. Like, we talk about that a lot, and I think a lot of people are still stuck in this mode of you can go build $100 million D2C brand. Look, it's very difficult. ROAS is 5 to 10s are now 3 to 5s, right? It just depends on what you're doing, how good your content is, what your brand is, and who you're going after, right? And smart. But even the best methods put a lot of pressure on profit, right? And if you don't have cash flow, if you don't have the cash, you can't grow. That's just a fact, right? It just is. And so that changes a lot of things. I think that's not going to get any better anytime soon. I think retail is kind of coming back into the bullseye a little bit with people saying, "Oh, wait," because this is how I describe retail. Offline shelves, like, they're both important. Offline is interesting because everybody's like, "Well, what about the margins you have to give?" Well, yeah, of course, right? They got to make money too.
Sure.
But think about this with the compressing returns on digital, right? And all the other extra costs you got to do to build a brand now, because or you just blend in, because everybody can start a brand from their garage nowadays, right? Everybody, right? So you got to be better to stand out and spend more money. Think about this: is if your tacos, or your total ad spend, for cost of sales, cost of revenue over sales is if it starts getting into 30, 40, 50, 60%, which it can in a lot of these businesses, that's a lot more than the margins you got to give away. So you're actually getting a lot of free marketing because it's free traffic that you're not going to spend on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And simply put, let's say you have a consumer, and let's say her name's Susie. Look, Susie's going to go look on Amazon. She's going to look on Walmart.com. She's going to go on her fill-in trip to Walgreens. She's going to go on her weekly trip to Walmart and pick up stuff, and then she's going to go do a big trip to Costco or Sam's Club once a month, right? It just like clockwork, right? And so, but within that time period, she's buying online and she's buying off shelf or off the steel and club. And so, to her, there's no difference, right? And so I think this blending of everything that's happening is going to continue. It's going to put a lot more pressure on profit, and I think it's going to put a lot more pressure on brands, because the competition is only going to keep on growing, because everybody can come in and play, and it is really messy on Amazon. Like, you go try to find something right on Amazon, everybody's got a brand. I talk to everybody in the world. Literally everybody I talk to has a brand they're either thinking of or want to do. It's crazy, right? So it's only going to get more hyper on all those things, right? And what it's going to do is, I think people come in and they think they're clever. Anybody can also get a co-packer now to manufacture anything. I can go call somebody up and get it myself very easily. This is much easier than it used to be. It used to be there was a lot of barriers to entry for everything, right? And so, if you start thinking about that, marketing exercise is, I call them marketing exercises, which is, I take something that's standard and I make it look shiny and pretty and magical, right? Which we've all done that when we're running brands and been in marketing. And I've had to polish a few rough stones before, I guess you could say. And it worked. It's worked in the past, not anymore, right? Because of the choice. I actually think what's going to really become even of more importance is, one, profitability is always going to be there, because you need the funds to drive R&D and marketing. But the other thing is I think innovations has always won, but I think that's going to be the true separator going forward because of the crowded market. When you get crowded, you got to find a way to cut through, and how do you, like, and I tell people, I was like, if there's 100 dots and they're all gray, I was like, why are you trying to make a grayer dot? I usually say, make the purple dot, make the one that when people look at the shelf or online screen, it pop out. And I think people really need to understand what that entails. And what that's going to do is put more power back into the medium and larger companies to do it, unless, there's some other things to do. And that's some things we're working on now, some very groundbreaking innovation stuff that is going to be strategic partnerships with Fusion that we're very, very excited on.
Yeah. I've said this for the last 10 years. It really is the best of times and worst of times. It's the best of times because it's never been easier to take a product to market. It's also the worst of times because it's never been easier for everybody else too. And it's getting incredibly crowded both in store and online. And so having someone, you'll spend the next 10 years and your life savings trying to figure this stuff out. Companies are so much further ahead. To partner with people like you and companies like yours that have spent the last 20 years really figuring all of this stuff out and then being able to apply it and making great business decisions. So it's been great spending some time getting to know you and your business and your view of the world a little bit better. I know you love having conversations with companies, anyone that would want to reach out and schedule some time with you, what's the very best way for them to do that?
Uh, Reach out to, I think I'm on your website too for the rapid retailing, but they can just reach out to me as buster@fusionretail.net. So pretty simple. Just shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk. I talk to a lot of companies, and we're a little picky, and companies are a little bit picky about who they go on with. So, but I just like going around hearing and finding opportunities. So I'm more than happy to have a discussion, whether it's to go into partnership or if it's just a chit chat on the future or what's going on in CPG.
Yeah. So again, Buster's really active on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with him on LinkedIn, that'd be a great place to start. Also, his website, fusionretail.net, would be a great place to learn more about he and his team and their capabilities, and then obviously to schedule some one-on-one time. So Buster, thank you so much. It's been great spending this time with you, and I look forward to talking again very soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thanks. Have a great day.